So going into the Portuguese Grand Prix a few weeks ago, it was announced that both Haas drivers, Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen, would be dropped at the end of the season. It's safe to say that due to some exceptional circumstances, the team have suffered a dismal run of form and the drivers are pretty much helpless. The pair have managed to accumulate a grand total of 3 points in 2020, with Romain leading the way in the Drivers' Championship. That is, against his teammate of course.
It's Romain Grosjean, champion of the world!
Speaking of his teammates, I find myself looking back and wondering exactly how his career didn't take off in the manner we all expected. Dude was an absolute beast in Formula Renault 3.5, as he blitzed the competition by 60 points, taking 5 wins and 9 podiums in the process. During all the tests he did for McLaren, he performed extremely well, topping the timing sheet in Abu Dhabi in 2012 and in Silverstone in 2013. Then, in his debut race with the team, he took his maiden Formula 1 podium, beating his teammate Jenson Button and firmly establishing himself as one of the brightest young talents the sport had ever seen. Comparisons came in left, right and centre, as he was tipped to be the next big thing. But since the highs of that Sunday in Melbourne, Australia, he has never tasted success quite like that. Literally. Ask yourself, what do you think happened to Kevin Magnussen's career? Stick around until the end of the video to find out how he went from this to this. So let's go back to where it all began back in 2014. For this, I've collaborated with fellow content creator Jeb Motorsport. So without further ado, take it away, Jeb.
Kevin Magnussen's first season in Formula 1 was never quite going to be on the level of Lewis Hamilton or Jacques Villeneuve's rookie seasons, but the Dane managed consistent points finishes and even a podium in the season opener at Albert Park. His teammate Jenson Button outperformed him by 126 points to Kevin's 55, but Button was a world champion with nearly a decade and a half's experience in Formula 1. For a newcomer to the sport and a declining McLaren team, Magnussen performed very well, and many thought he was a shoo-in for McLaren's 2015 driver lineup, which made it all the more confusing when he wasn't. Enter Fernando Alonso. Fernando had fallen out very publicly with Ferrari in 2014, claiming that the team couldn't build him a title-winning car. He left Ferrari in October 2014, and McLaren surprisingly snapped up the former world champion for 2015, leaving Magnussen out in the cold. To add further insult to injury, Magnussen's demotion was done via email, on his birthday. Talk about a bad breakup. McLaren CEO at the time, Ron Dennis, was reportedly in favour of retaining Magnussen for 2015. However, the F1 bureaucratic circus had other ideas. Although McLaren's sponsors and shareholders preferred Magnussen, major shareholder and TAG CEO Mansour Ojei wanted to keep Button alongside Alonso for 2015. TAG owned a 14% share in McLaren at the time, and the colour of Ojei's money was enough for the higher-ups at McLaren to ignore Dennis's recommendations. Having 2 world champions in the team was a huge PR boost for McLaren, and unfortunately for Magnussen, his career was in the way. Magnussen was demoted to a reserve driver role for 2015, and even raced in the season-opening Australian Grand Prix after Alonso suffered an injury in pre-season testing. Despite this, a prospective move to the Andretti Autosport IndyCar team was blocked by McLaren, who then released him at the end of the year. Magnussen's future in Formula 1 was well and truly in doubt.
If you haven't already checked out Jeb, he has a great YouTube channel which I'll leave a link to up here and in the description below. As Jeb mentioned, this was a make or break situation for Kevin, as he couldn't afford to miss out on another year in Formula 1, otherwise his time in the sport would come to an end. However, the Lotus F1 team's participation in the 2016 season came into question as they were awaiting the resolution of a High Court case to do with unpaid taxes. As a result, Renault bought out the team from G9 Capital and returned to the sport as a fully factory-supported team once again. Despite having already signed a contract with Lotus in 2016, Pastor Maldonado announced that he would not be driving that year as his sponsors were unable to fill their contractual obligations to Renault. The 2014 GP2 champion Jolyon Palmer would take one of the Renault seats alongside Kevin Magnussen, who admitted that he had signed the contract the day before Renault's launch. The good news was that K-Mag actually had a drive in Formula 1, but the bad news was that Renault were worse off than they expected. Even though they made some great progress throughout the year, that progress didn't manifest itself out on track, as there was little to no point putting resources in the RS16 with the big aero regulation changes coming for 2017. And due to the fact that they bought out Lotus late into the off-season, they had limited preparation time and spent most of the season getting themselves in order. Magnussen's season wasn't all that bad though, as he finished the season ahead of his teammate in the championship, outscoring him by 6 points. Throughout the year, the Dane seemed to be overdriving the Renault in hot pursuit of a points finish every single weekend. But he didn't always reap the rewards of his labour. The start of the season was relatively decent. Magnussen was forced to start from the pit lane in Bahrain after failing to stop at the weighbridge during practice. But he managed to deliver a brilliant result, finishing P11 and just 1 place shy of the points. A second opportunity to score points presented itself in Russia, and this time Magnussen grabbed it with both hands. Having avoided all the drama instigated by the torpedo on lap 1, Kevin made the most of an aggressive strategy to undercut Romain Grosjean and snatch a superb P7 finish. From then on, Magnussen was eager to grasp at any opportunity to score points again. More often than not, he would be among the first to gamble on intermediates or slicks in mixed conditions. One example of this was at the Monaco Grand Prix, where he was the first one to take a chance on the intermediate tyres after the safety car came into the pits. Meanwhile, his teammate Jolyon Palmer was getting trolled by a zebra crossing. Magnussen's strategy was close to paying off before being rammed by Danik Fiat at Raskas. He attempted a similar strategy at Silverstone and Interlagos, but those didn't pay off either. His all-attack approach paid off now and again, but the risks that came with it were much greater. It was during this year that he suffered 2 heavy crashes in Canada, and most notably when going through Radion at Spa. By the end of the year, Palmer gained the clear upper hand over the Dane, albeit Magnussen was losing faith in the team at this point and probably didn't have any motivation. Renault had also only offered him a 1-year contract extension, which only further proved to him just how little they were willing to commit. So he went looking, and eventually landed a deal with Haas. In his debut season with the American team, he was labelled as F1's bad boy for essentially not giving a flying f***.
What are you doing?
His first collision with a rival came just 4 corners into the Australian Grand Prix, where he crashed into Marcus Ericsson. In Spain, he clashed with Danik Fiat. In Malaysia, he clashed with Fernando Alonso, and in Hungary, he forced Nico Hülkenberg off the track, resulting in one of the most memorable post-race exchanges of all time.
Han prøver på yderbanen.
Once again, most unsportive driver of the grid.
Suck my balls, mate.
Yeah, you're really good, man.
On the other hand, some of his opportunistic moves were executed to great effect, such as his bold lunge up the inside of Felipe Massa at turn 2 in Suzuka. However, generally, Magnussen was forced to go for these high-risk moves on a Sunday, as he didn't fare well against his teammate on a Saturday. The qualifying margin between the two was 0.2 of a second in Grosjean's favour, with a head-to-head score of 12-7. Despite his struggles in qualifying, Magnussen kept his teammate on his toes during the races, as he won the head-to-head battle 7-6 in races where they both finished. With a P10, 3 P8s and a season-high P7 in Baku, Kevin finished the championship in P14 with 19 points, 9 points less than Grosjean. But he hadn't lost that raw speed we saw from the very first race back in 2014. His strong race performances were evidence of that. Well, most of them. With more consistent qualifying and less reckless decision-making, Magnussen had the potential to get the better of Grosjean in 2018. For the first time in his entire motor racing career, K-Mag had driven for the same team for 2 consecutive seasons. For round 1 in Australia, he was running up in 4th place, with teammate Romain Grosjean following closely in 5th. But both drivers ended up in retirement after 2 disastrous pit stops, losing a crucial 22 points in the Constructors' Championship. Magnussen bounced back strong in Bahrain, finishing P5, and it seemed as if Haas were the 4th fastest car on merits. However, the season results on the whole were relatively inconsistent, and as a result, he did not take that best of the rest spot in the Drivers' Championship. His qualifying was also not quite the improvement we were all expecting after last year, as he was outqualified by Grosjean 11-8 with an average gap of just over 1/10 of a second. His ruthless approach to racing oftentimes led to close encounters with his rivals, and slowly by slowly, he was starting to get a bad reputation from them. Nevertheless, he finished the season with 19 more points than Romain and 5 positions higher. And given that the team was still relatively inexperienced, making mistakes were bound to occur more often than not. Therefore, 2019 was looking promising. Right? Right?
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap.
Throughout most of the 2019 season, Haas struggled with time management. Big time. There wasn't anything wrong with their qualifying pace, as both drivers made it into Q3 9 times each. There was also a lot of shady goings on with their sponsors Rich Energy, owned by a man who Josh Revel refers to as Bad Santa. Magnussen's start to the season was once again very promising, as he finished the Australian Grand Prix in P6. He also added a P7 in Spain to increase his points tally to 14 out of the 20 he scored during the season. But other than those 2 races, Haas got caught in a loop of poor performances that they had no explanation for. Combine this with the Rich Energy situation and the tensions boiling over at the British Grand Prix, we were all blessed with the most profound quote in F1 history.
He does not fox smash my door. Fox smash my door. Fox smash my door.
K-Mag was able to capitalize during those moments when the car was at its best, resulting in more substantial point hauls over his teammates. But he ended the season down in 16th in the championship, which was massively disappointing given their performance only a year ago. And now we're back to the present day in 2020. Both Kevin and Roman have both been sacked by Haas, leaving them without a seat for 2021. For me, Magnussen's career is one of the biggest unknowns of all time. In my opinion, I think he has genuine talent and can deliver some incredible performances on his day and with the right environment around him. Even though I spent a lot of time focusing on how reckless he can be at times, some of the go for broke moves he made were absolutely sublime. Like that time he drove clean around the outside of Max Verstappen at the start of the 2018 Australian Grand Prix. Speaking of starts, he is one of the best on the grid when it comes to making places on lap 1, like when he went from P15 to P11 in Austria in 2017, or his lightning quick getaway in Monaco that same year. Let's also not forget his double overtake on Massa and Hülkenberg in Baku to move into P5. For a driver who jumped straight into a McLaren and stuck it on the podium in his first ever Formula 1 race, I do wonder what he could potentially have achieved had he found himself at the right places at the right times. I guess we'll never know, now he'll be leaving at the end of the season. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you think it went wrong for Kevin Magnussen? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to enjoy my latest videos in the future. Also remember to check out Jeb's channel, whose links will be in the description below. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.